Okay, here we are at the end of October loose ends. Let me know when you guys can hear me, both in the Moore's Law is Dead Discord and then in the live chat as well, just to get it all covered. All right, let's see. So far, there we go. There's always that like 10-second delay there or something. And I see someone typing in the Moore's Law is Dead Discord as well. And we'll set up for the timestamps here for the people that watch later. All right, so it looks like everybody says you can hear me well and the stream's going just fine. And so, yeah, I mean, let's get started. This is the, again, end of October. I always try to do this within a couple of weeks of the end of the month. I'm trying to catch back up. The last one was like on the 19th, and that was the 16th. Hopefully, the next one will be before the 10th. And I apologize, but it's often around when there's an opening. Like if there is a week where there isn't a ton of news, which is important, not just because I want to maybe avoid having to do another video right next to this, but it's also important because, well, for example, if I knew I was going to do a big Lovelace Super League and I had a loose ends to do, it would be very silly if I did a live stream question and answering before I put out a bunch of new information. I think today is just a good day to answer questions now that the dust has settled a bit right before Threadripper and Meteor Lake launches. And so, yeah, remember, if you put a tipped question in the live chat, I will get to it eventually. So please don't hesitate. Put those in there now if you want to ask a question. Otherwise, I will just go through what I have to talk about today in the order I choose, which I actually, as I often do, have new leaks and information to discuss. And so let's first talk about NVIDIA Super, because there's actually some pretty important information that I leaked recently that I'm suspecting a lot of people missed. So, yeah, one of the first links in the description you will see will be about super laptops. It's a tweet I put out recently confirming something that I think, if I remember correctly, Jared's Tech said, and then I think a laptop website talked about, and then I realized I hadn't ever really talked about or asked about super laptops, and so I reached out to some people at NVIDIA, and they confirmed that indeed there will not be super laptops. Well, probably ever for Lovelace, actually, not at CES. It's just they're not coming, and I was directly told that is because NVIDIA does not feel threatened in laptop right now. Like if they have to respond, they'll just drop prices. They're not really interested in raising performance and repositioning their mobility lineup, because really AMD, if we're being honest, I understand why they're saying this. I mean, AMD just launched the 7900M, right? And they've got the 7600. They haven't even launched Navi 32 mobility products. So NVIDIA doesn't feel very threatened right there. But there's a key detail in this information I put out about super laptops that I think a lot of people may have missed. I said NVIDIA does not have super laptops coming with Lovelace. Their next generation laptop lineup will be announced at CES 2025. Think about what that means. I just confirmed that Blackwell will be ready in January of 2025, at least by then. And in fact, usually NVIDIA launches their products to desktop, I don't know, 1 to 4 months before they launch them to laptop. And so I'm basically confirming that if NVIDIA wants to, they can launch the RTX 5000 series, not just to laptop in early 2025, but to desktop in late 2024. Now, to be fair, this really doesn't differ from anything that I have said for the past year. I've consistently said everyone I talk to at NVIDIA, connected to NVIDIA, says there's going to be a standard release cadence. That means late 2024. But now I've got it like extra confirmed here. And I think this is important because a lot of people keep, you saw a similar thing with Lovelace. Like there were some really bad takes put out there before Lovelace came out of people saying, oh, it's probably never coming out in 2022 or something. It's really, and they were wrong. And that was leaks planted to them by NVIDIA to try to get people to buy up Ampere. Or I don't even know if it was by NVIDIA. I actually think it was just by AIBs trying to get YouTube channels to get people to buy Ampere. I don't even think it was NVIDIA. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of that's going on again right now. So again, though, it is up to if NVIDIA wants to. If they look around and they say nobody wants new GPUs right now, it wouldn't surprise me if they just launched in quarter 1 or 2 next year with Blackwell to desktop, but that would just be a choice. They will totally be ready to launch a fresh new lineup to gamers late next year. 1 year from now, they'll be ready to go with the 5090 if they want to be. And, a lot of that probably depends on how good RDNA 4 is as well. But yeah, that's that. The only other thing I really have to say about Super in the beginning of this video is, I think the 4070 Ti Super, assuming it's $800, not like $900, but I don't think it will be. I think it will be $799, at most $849. I think the 4070 Ti Super is going to sell pretty well. I mean, from what I'm seeing, it's probably going to be 9 to 15% weaker than the 4080. It's not the same performance as the 4080. Like, if you look at the CUDA core count, it's going down. It will be weaker than the 4080, but it will have 16 gigabytes of RAM. It'll be, a third cheaper than what the 4080 was priced at. And I think at $800, a 16 gigabyte card that probably slightly loses to the 7900 XTX, I think that can do well. But I don't think AMD is necessarily screwed, because it will be weaker, I believe, than the 7900 XTX. And if it is weaker, I mean, AMD we've already seen they can afford to sell the 7900 XTX for like $850 or $800 during July this year. I think AMD can just do a price drop to $900, and they'll say, look, we're stronger. We have 50% more RAM. We can afford to sell our card for $900. And certainly if AMD were to drop their 7900 XTX to $850, I don't think they have much to worry about. But again, I still think there'd be a lot of people that'll buy the 4070 Ti Super. I think that one's probably set to succeed. Then the 4070 Super, as long as it's $600, and as long as they allow the 4070 to drift to $500, I think those cards will sell very well. Now, the 4080 Super is interesting, though, because I think a lot of people look at what's planned for the 4080 Super, which is to say it should be around, I think, 9% faster, maybe 8%, 8 to 10%, but I think it's going to be about 8% faster than the 4080. That should bring it just about within 20% of the performance of the 4090. And I think people see that, and then they see that I believe they will price the 4080 Super, or at least I'm told they will, at $1,000, and they go, well, okay, so NVIDIA's making this card $200 cheaper. They're making it stronger. This thing's going to be a killer. Maybe. I do think we have to consider, though, that compare the 4080 Super to the 7900 XTX, let's say at $900. So the 4080 Super and right now in Raster, if you look at the latest comparisons at Hardware Unboxed, like the 7900 XTX in Raster does beat the 4080 typically by like 5 to 7%. So if they boost the 4080 Super by 8%, well, we have a situation where NVIDIA has a card that is about the same raster, better ray tracing, but AMD has 50% more RAM. If AMD were to put the 7900 XTX at $900, I think that's cheap enough. It'll keep selling well. And certainly if AMD were to price it at $850, I don't see the 4080 Super as being a guaranteed win. Again, the 4090 will cost at least 60% more than it. That makes it look like a better deal than the 4090, but I still think a lot of people will go, I'm spending $1,000. I want 50% more RAM, and I want that extra performance. And remember, even if the 4090 is only 20% better in raster than the 4080, it's like 40% better in ray tracing. And I just can't help but wonder, watching 4080 Super sales is going to be very interesting. It's going to be interesting to watch because I think it could sell well, but I don't think it's as much of a shoe-in to be a hit as like the 4070 Ti Super. I think that's obvious, right? I mean, the 4070 Ti is already selling okay. It's selling well at $750, I hear. So if NVIDIA launches something 15-20% stronger than the 4070 Ti with more RAM at the same price, well, it's already selling all right. Yeah, it'll sell really well. But the 4080 is like not selling. Like, I'm told by ABs, this is the worst selling 80 card they've made. So if you think about it, then I still wonder if $1,000 is a mental block for people to buy it. Like, they'll go, guys, I don't care if you make it 20% stronger. If it's $999 or more, I don't want to buy something that has 80 in the name. That's what I'm going to be watching with 4080 sales. I still think a $900 7900 XTX is probably a better buy for gaming for a lot of people. Not everyone, it's not like now where the 4080 is a complete joke, but I think it'll have enough competition there. And I still just think around 1,000 is a price where a lot of people just don't want to pay it unless it's the best. And that'll be interesting to watch. All right. So that is what I have to say about the 4080 Super. Let me see here. Yeah, I've actually got 2 leaks, but I want to get through the sponsor first. Let me get right into that. So this live stream is sponsored by Micro Center, as it always is. And it's honestly sometimes hard for me to say too much about this because, look, Micro Center is just where you should go if you can to build a new PC. I mean, they've got deals going on where they're giving away 64 gigabytes of RAM. I've seen the 7800. I guess I should do the bare minimum and actually look what their pricing is right now, so I don't, put my foot in my mouth potentially. But if I look up the 7800 X3D right now. Let's see, which I need to, of course, for some reason, make it a processor. Yeah, it's 307. Oh, and that's new. Okay, so I'm glad I checked. Right now at Micro Center, the 7800 X3D is 370, and it comes with 32 gigabytes of RAM. I mean, what else do you got to say, guys? I mean, you're getting the best gaming processor on the market with 32 gigabytes of RAM at Micro Center. And I think now is actually a fantastic time to build. CPU prices are down, RAM prices are down, SSD prices. I just got a 2 terabyte Gen 4 SSD that's 7 gigabit per second speed for $90. $90 a 2 terabyte fast Gen 4. And I think SSD prices are about to go up. So my general recommendation promoting Micro Center today is now's a good time to build a PC, and Micro Center is the place to go. Additionally, if you check the links in the description, you can see that if you're a new customer, you can get a Creality Ender 3 V2 3D printer for $99. They've got a new Charlotte store opening up as well, where you can get a free flash drive when that opens in 2024. And they've also got their Black Friday deals going right now. So right now, Micro Center has their Black Friday deals going on. Please click those links in the description. Seriously, even if you're not going to Micro Center, you click those links in the description, it actually helps support the channel just doing that alone. But I do genuinely think now is the best time to build a PC in 3 or 4 years, and Micro Center is the best pricing. So check them out today. Glad they sponsored this. All right, now let's get to some more leaks. Write down some details there. And please hit the like button, everybody. I see that we are climbing to 500 viewers. If we could get to at least 500 likes by the end of this, that would be awesome. We put on this here, and now let's talk about the 8800 XT that is in the title. So yeah, I just leaked during because I didn't know a better time to do it, during the recent Tekia City Broken Silicon RDNA 4 performance. Now, this pretty much coincides with the specs that I soft leaked as an option, I'd say a few months ago. I don't remember. It was at least a month ago. And I'm told, and I've been told even more so since leaking that, by the way, this week. So a day or two after I leaked that, I've been told again, and I think they will probably call it the 8800 XT, but 8700 XT, 8800 XT, one or the other. I do believe that card is going to perform probably close to a 4080 at least. Bare minimum 7900 XT, which remember is only like 15% weaker. And then there's a chance it can match the 4080 Super. I don't see it getting to a 4090 though. And I think up until now, what I've basically said is you're probably looking at around 7900 XT to 4090, somewhere in there. Well, now it's narrowing to a little better than 7900 XT to at least a little weaker than the 4090. And I think, right in the middle of that range is the 4080. And I'm told directly this thing should cost between $400 and $600. So I think this could be a pretty great card for the market, by the way. I mean, I think I think new stuff's always cool. I have a 4090. I don't regret having a 4090, but I don't think most gamers need a 4090. I don't even really think most people need a 4080, to be honest, or 7900 XTX. So if AMD can bring even something close to 4080 performance to $500 or even $400, that is going to be such a boon for game development, where they'll go, all right, so now we've got a mid-range card that's not like something 30% better than a 2080 Ti. We've got something here that's like double 20. Well, let me see, what would that be? 2080 Ti. I don't want to again put my foot in my mouth here. So that's compared to a 4080. Oh, I'm okay. I'm right. Yeah, 4080 is about double 2080 Ti performance. And anything that's really above 2080 Ti performance really hasn't been that cheap, even to this day. Like the 3070 had an MSRP of $500, but that's only recently dropped below there. It's most of its life it was 600 or more on the street. The 7800 XT is of course stronger than a 2080 Ti, but what is it really? 30-40% stronger. So for $500, if we get something double that performance at 500, that is going to bring something where and then think about why that's important too. If the, let's call it 8700 XT was, or 8800 XT, whatever they call it, was $500, around 4080 performance, that means the cut down model might be 400. That means they might be bringing like 3070 performance to like low end. And I think there is where you're going to get some games that really aren't afraid to push it, because then you'll have mid-range graphics cards that cost about the same as the consoles that are, I mean, God, what would that be? I don't know, that are about 2.3 times stronger than the consoles, and they can go, we can do this. So I think that, and also it have 16 gigs of RAM, which is also important there. I guess they already have that, the 7800 XT, but I think that's really exciting. And I guess the only other thing I really want to address about that leak in this live stream is, well, it'll come out in a die shrink, which chance to plug the Patreon tomorrow. I had a patron bet me if I actually think it will be this powerful. And it seems like, from what I've gathered from some patrons and discussions in the Moore's Law's Dead Discord, is that some people are skeptical AMD can bring 7900 XT performance to the $500 price point, which I guess, just to make everything clear to people here, like you always see this, you see people going, oh, well, that's not possible. Let me see. So the 7900 XT is only, it's I don't even think it's 30% faster than the 7800 XT. So it's really insane that people think right now AMD is a $500 product, that a year and a half after it launched, or I guess it would be probably 13 months after it launched or something, they bring out something 30% better for the same price. I don't think that's absurd at all. Like, that's totally believable, and it's entirely believable in terms of its specs as well. The 7900 XTX, which is about 4080 performance, everybody, that has a GCD, a 5 nanometer die that's 300 millimeters squared. There's some die space wasted going into chiplets, and they'll have a better node. So take the 7900 XTX, 300 millimeters squared, 5 nanometer die, remove the extra chiplets, but now use a 4 nanometer node that's a bit more dense. And then consider that they don't need as much memory IO die space, because I'm pretty dang sure it's 256-bit, but it will have similar bandwidth because faster memory will be on the market late next year. And you go, yeah, I mean, 300 millimeters squared, go to 4 nanometer from 5, probably in a monolithic die with you can make it the same size, faster RAM to make up for a smaller bus. Yeah, you can probably get to 7900 XTX performance for around $500. I think it's totally believable. We were talking about the same amount of silicon, actually a little less technically, although it'll be slightly more expensive, but you won't have to as much packaging cost as the 7800 XT. Totally believable. They could do that. And it's not crazy really at all. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's actually what this market needs. And the only thing I'll say is I don't really expect it to beat the 4080 in ray tracing right now. I think it'll probably be probably better than the 7900 XTX in ray tracing, a little worse than the 4080. I think RDNA 5 is the big one, probably because it's going to be in the PS6 where they push ray tracing hard. And I guess the only other thing to really say about it actually is they canceled, Navi 4C, the 8900 XTX, at least as far as I'm still hearing they still have canceled that. Think about it then. Okay, so they're canceling the top one, but from what we're hearing, RDNA 4 has better ray tracing, a focus on efficiency, and is a mid-range die size. So it's meant to fit into laptops. I think people need to understand what's going on here with AMD late next year through 2025. They're going to have Hawk Point already on the market. They're going to be launching Strix Point, and they're going to be launching Strix Point probably right before RDNA 4 launches. And RDNA 4 sounds like a perfect high-end laptop chip. It's all about laptop, guys. 1 year from now, AMD is just going to be going to laptop hard. Hawk Point, Strix Halo, Fire Range, Escher, Kraken, and an RDNA architecture that is clearly tailored to mobile. I just think that's obvious. That's what's going on. Is AMD sees an opening. They probably see this 2024 through 2026 as their last chance to have an advantage against Intel in mobile performance. They're like, and this is when we're going to go for it then. So, it's disappointing they canceled the 8900 XTX, but the 8800 XT or 8700 XT, whatever they call it, still sounds impressive. And it sounds like perfectly tailored to be bundled with Strix and Hawkpoint and laptops. So I just wanted to get all that out there as well. And now, speaking of laptops, I'm sorry, keep the tipped questions coming if you want to ask them. I am logging them right now before I get to them, but I wanted to make sure I get to these leaks first. So I've got new Meteor Lake performance to leak today, or I don't know if it's that new, but it is a new score. So in the past few days, I was sent some more scores for Meteor Lake, and the 6+8 one, and this is one of the top models. Let me pull it up actually. I mean, I am doing a leak. I should at least bother to tell you what model it was. Yeah, it was a Core Ultra 9 185H. So a Core Ultra 9 185H, and it got a Cinebench R23 multi-threading score of around 20,000. And looking around online, that puts it 10 to 20% better than Raptor Lake. Now, here's the thing, though. This model was using over 75 watts, possibly over 100 watts. And I'm not going to share this. I actually think maybe I've shared a little too much Meteor Lake leaks recently. I want to protect my sources now. I can't just keep disclosing scores from some test houses, a handful of them that I have contact with. Eventually, I worry people could tie it back. So I'm not going to show it today. But again, Cinebench R23 multi-threading score of around 20,000. And to be honest, though, I was also sent a performance curve at different power consumption levels. And it seems like at 150 watts, 6+8 Meteor Lake performs the same as Raptor Lake at 150 watts. And its biggest advantage is down to 45 watts. Obviously, that's the point of Meteor Lake. But at least in the test samples I saw this week, I didn't see it beating Raptor Lake by like 50% or something. If you're pushing all of the cores hard, I think an idle will do better. But honestly, I think there's a chance Meteor Lake, if you're doing heavy gaming or rendering or pushing the cores above 80% consumption or 80% utilization, I think if you're maxing out Meteor Lake, it kind of only seems 10 to 30% more efficient than Raptor Lake. That's kind of the bombshell I'm releasing today. Will it be significantly better battery life than Raptor Lake because of idle power consumption and like low utilization power consumption? Yes, I think so. But I'm not seeing evidence that if you're maxing this thing out, it performs that much better. And in fact, now that I'm saying this out loud here, think about it. If Raptor Lake and Meteor Lake perform the same at 150 watts, that tells you everything you need to know about why it was canceled for desktop, because it's not better than Raptor Lake on desktop. It just wouldn't have been. Maybe it would have even been weaker. It may have not even been more efficient at 150 watts on desktop. And it's kind of disappointing. I don't really have that much else to say about it. The Cinebench score is better than Raptor Lake until you get to like 125 watts or something, and it's even at 150 watts. And it seems to, in the benchmarks I saw this week, be about 15% faster than Phoenix, maybe 10%, 15%, depending. And I guess that starts getting me to this thing I wanted to talk about of Meteor Lake versus Hawkpoint, because, I just saw this on video cards today, a Geekbench leak of Hawkpoint showing it 4 to 13% faster than Phoenix. And I've already leaked links in the description, by the way. I think a lot of people missed this APU leak I put out showing specs of Hawkpoint, Kraken, Escher. I mean, you guys don't want to miss that leak. I showed that Hawkpoint has 60% higher AI performance than Phoenix. So when I see on video cards a Geekbench score suggesting Hawkpoint could have 4 to 13% faster clock speeds than Phoenix, that sounds right. I think they're boosting the AI engine's clock speed 60%. If they can boost the AI engine 60%, I'd expect them to boost the multi-threading score at least 10%. And that means that I don't know that Meteor Lake's going to beat Hawkpoint, guys. I don't, unfortunately. And I guess that's what I'm telling you today is, Meteor Lake's really not going to launch for over a month from now. And it sounds like Hawkpoint's ready to hit the ground hard in January. I don't think you need to sit around and go, I gotta wait for this OEM to have their Meteor Lake laptop ready. You don't need to wait. Hawkpoint looks just as good and cheaper. So it is what it is. I really think Meteor Lake was just supposed to come out a year ago, and if it would have been great. But at this stage, it doesn't seem like a Hawkpoint killer. I've just have too many scores that I've been sent. I have performance curves at different power consumption levels showing that if you push this thing on a gaming laptop to 95 watts, it doesn't even really seem better than Raptor Lake. I don't know what to tell you guys. Meteor Lake will be at its best when it doesn't have a dedicated graphics card. Frankly, in a thin 13 or 12-inch laptop. I don't even know 14. Because once you get that big, you can fit a dedicated graphics card or other things that would kind of make it. I think that's where Meteor Lake's going to do well. 25 to 45 watts, 13 inches. I think above that, Hawkpoint's cheaper. Raptor Lake is almost the same. And that's the unfortunate truth that I'm leaking here today. And then I guess the other thing I would say is when you look at my Hawkpoint APU leak showing, 60% higher AI performance, and you look at that Geekbench score showing 13% faster I think it was 11 or 12% faster multi-threading than Phoenix on that one score. Again, links in the description. Yeah, I think Hawkpoint looks like Renoir to Cezanne. I don't think you're looking at this isn't like a standard refresh. It's not as big of a deal as Cezanne to Rembrandt, but I think if they can boost single threading 5%, multi-threading over 10%, AI performance 60%, to me that sounds overall like a Renoir to Cezanne situation. And I'm really excited because from what I am hearing, it really sounds like it's going to probably get a decent amount of design wins because it can drop right into Phoenix laptops and it's even better. And now OEMs are building a lot of Phoenix laptops because, well, they had to because of how delayed Meteor Lake's release was. All right. Now, that is all the leaks I wanted to get to, but I am going to jump right into the Patreon questions here because I have a bunch of mobility questions. As you might expect, leak. Sorry, just let me write down some timestamps here. And again, I think I'll only do this for about another hour. I see at least 2 tips here. Kiln God, thank you for the tip. I don't see a question though. And then I see Hamza Judo writing in who has a question. Let me just get to that right now then. Will there be any significant price cuts or bundles for CPUs on Black Friday? I mean, guys, Black Friday is a week away. I think what you're seeing is what you're getting. I think you're going to see a couple surprises as usual on Black Friday, like, oh, they discounted this $20. But I think what you see right now, like I mentioned, the 7800X 3D for $370 or something at Micro Center with 32 gigabytes of RAM for free. I think you're doing better than that. I think the pricing you're seeing now is the pricing you're going to get. Black Friday's changed. So what you're seeing, just get it now. I don't think you need to wait for Black Friday, and I don't think retailers really want you to anymore or really see a benefit in doing that now that they've all basically moved online. All right, so please tip now, but let me get to these mobility questions. I'll actually put a new timestamp for that. So let's see here. Bfish writes in and says, hi, Tom. MSI laptops with Meteor Lake have already leaked with pricing. You had mentioned that OEMs are buying up Phoenix due to the lateness of the release. Since Strix is a drop-in upgrade also to Phoenix and Hotpoint, can we expect broader OEM support soon, or is it a wait for 2025 situation? Let me put that Strix availability as the timestamp there. So, Bfish, what I would say is you should expect Strix to have better and more broader support than Phoenix got in the first couple months of launching. But outside of that, I can't confirm. I mean, in many ways, we're going to have to see how well Hawkpoint does over the next 6 months before we can really be sure how well Strix will do. Sorry, I just had a pop-up thing here. Yeah, so anyways, sorry about that. I just had a distracting thing pop up. But yeah, so I mean, I think what we can say is, and I was told this directly, that Strix will have heavy volume closer to its launch than what Phoenix had. I leaked that they delayed Strix from like quarter 1 or 2. It was really quarter 2, from quarter 2 to quarter 3. but I think they'll have the volume when they launch. And I was directly told that AMD kind of sees it as pointless to launch laptops in the first half of the year when back to school starts in like August. So if back to school is August, you might as well just have a big launch late July and then heavy availability when people are actually shopping for their laptops than trying to pretend your product launched in quarter one or two. So better availability I expect than before, but it's too early to say if it will be wildly better because a lot of that is somewhat out of AMD's hands. King Koro writes in and says, with Meteor Lake seemingly being a much more complex design compared to Phoenix and Hawkpoint, do you expect laptops equipped with Meteor Lake SoCs to be noticeably more expensive than AMD equipped counterparts? Do you think Intel will have to accept smaller margins than AMD again to sell well, given that it doesn't look like it will outperform the competition by large amounts, if at all? I mean, didn't we just see leaks of Meteor Lake pricing that suggest it's not cheap? I mean, right? Like, I think that's on video cards, and Beefish just brought it up, but let me scroll down here. Yeah, I mean, so we have several models here, and we got the MSI Core Ultra. Yeah, I mean, these look more expensive to me. So yeah, they're gonna cost more, and let me see. And they're going to cost a bit more because I don't think Meteor Lake costs drastically more than Raptor Lake, but I don't think it's really much cheaper. They've got to package it. I've heard the Node is more efficient, but early on, yeah, I don't know. I think they will have smaller margins than AMD. Yeah, I think they probably will because they generally have been recently, and I think Hawkpoint's going to be very cost effective. So that's my answer. Outside of that, I can't give you an exact number, but yeah, I think AMD's got a pricing advantage with Hawkpoint. David writes in and says, "Hi Tom, how likely is it that Nvidia will screw AMD's upcoming laptop APUs release by paying companies to add Nvidia GPUs to AMD laptops, destroying the entire point of having a powerful laptop in the first place? If likely, will AMD try to fight it? What can we do about it?" I ask because I'm quite concerned about how difficult it is to find 7940HS laptops with no discrete GPU. What's more ridiculous is that they're paired with 4050s and 4060s. Yeah, I mean, I got Dan for a graduation gift a 7840HS Lenovo laptop. 90 hertz, 1600p screen, touch screen too, $1,000 at a terabyte of storage, I think. Yeah, 16 gigs of RAM. And yet it came with a 3056 gigabyte. In our testing, the 3056 gigabyte, well, I mean, I can also just pull it up quick to make sure I know what I'm quoting here. Let me go down to, I mean, you were looking at about, it's not quite that strong. Where is it? God, I have to scroll down quite a bit to get to its performance level. There it is. So if you compare a 3050, I mean, yeah, the 3056 gigabyte was like 50 to 80% stronger, and that seems silly, but at the end of the day, it was a $1,000 laptop. It came with Phoenix, a touchscreen, and above 60 hertz touchscreen, and a terabyte of storage built in. And I said to Dan, usually these laptops with Phoenix are $1,200 or something, or $1,000 without a graphics card. Just press the button to turn off the graphics card if it's that important to you, and it does give you 6 gigabytes of extra RAM for the graphics. And it is a bit goofy, but the 3050 is, up to double the performance of Phoenix, probably closer to 60% stronger. And it is an odd thing. Like, you would think, why not at least give it like a 4060 or something, so it's at least over double the performance of the iGPU. But here's the thing, David, I don't think Nvidia is paying these OEMs to bundle a 3050 with Phoenix. I think these OEMs already had laptop designs that Rembrandt fit in, and they did. This was actually, I know this model was Rembrandt 4 months ago, and then they scrambled to put Phoenix in it to make it a new model because Meteor Lake was delayed. And if you think about it, then if you're an OEM and you're already stockpiling a ton of 3050s, and your old laptop used to have, what would it be? 6800 HS or 6900 HS and a 3050, and and so back then it made more sense because it's double the performance of that and Phoenix. But if you're gonna just drop in a Phoenix upgrade to Rembrandt and you already have the 3050s there, I mean, honestly, putting the NVIDIA sticker on your laptop probably allows you to sell it for $200 more. And that's why they're doing it. I don't think NVIDIA is paying these OEMs to not use AMD. I think OEMs are using NVIDIA graphics cards and laptops because they know it'll sell better. And I think this is also a major issue for Meteor Lake. You know, there's a lot of people that will buy and are buying AMD laptops without dedicated cards in them. That's because Ryzen has a lot of brand power, and Ryzen laptops are regarded very highly by reviewers. And generally speaking, people know that AMD integrated graphics have this history of being regarded well. Well, think about that. If OEMs already want to put an NVIDIA sticker on an AMD laptop to make it sell better, what the hell do you think is going to happen if an OEM needs to decide between an ARC sticker and an NVIDIA sticker? And I think, I just covered that Meteor Lake will probably be at its best around 25 to 45 watts with no dedicated GPU and a thin 13-inch laptop. Yeah, well, I mean, that also would be a situation where they have to put an ARC sticker on it and they don't want to. So I'm going to be interested to see how well Meteor Lake sells, because the whole point was supposed to be no dedicated graphics card. But I've had OEM say that you might as well put a poison warning on it if you instead of an ARC sticker. So I think that's why that happens, and I think it's something AMD has to deal with. But I think it's a much bigger issue for Intel moving forward. Um, Benjamin Cannon writes in, and he asks, how do you think they will name Strix Halo Fire Range, given how similar they are, assuming Zen 5 will likely be Zen 5 will likely be 9955HX for 2025? Yeah, I guess it probably would be, wouldn't it? I mean, honestly, let me write that down. Strix Halo naming. I don't actually see a big issue naming Strix Halo. Like, whatever it's going to release next to, which is Fire Range, actually, we know that. They'll just name it the same and put a G or something on the end. You know what I mean? Like, Strix Halo goes up to 16 Zen 5 cores, just like Fire Range goes up to 16 Zen 5 cores. So if you were going to call Fire Range like a 16-core Fire Range chip, the 9945HX, right? That's what it would be calling me to. 7945HX. It's a 16-core product, right? Yeah, so right now the 7945HX is a 16-core Zen 4. So I presume Fire Range would be an 8945HX, at most 9945HX. All right, so if you have a Strix Halo product, you'll probably call it 8945G. Right? That's what you would do. You already have the naming scheme. Instead of putting HX, just put G or something, whatever moniker they want to use for the fact that it will have powerful integrated graphics, because the core counts aren't any different than Fire Range, Benjamin. So I don't see why that would change anything. Okay, Dave Schultz writes in and says, hey, Tom, after the reveal of the new Snapdragon X Elite SoC for Windows, do you think we'll soon see a shift in PC hardware, maybe an SOS with soldered on memory and only the SOS? Do you mean SoC? With soldered on memory and only expendable storage and GPU slot? I mean, even the x86 giants are seemingly more and more interested in ARM and RISC-V. Yeah, but the thing with ARM and RISC-V is, are Intel and AMD interested in it? Sure. And if you ask them in an interview, what are they going to say? No. What is Lisa Su going to say in an interview? Are you looking into ARM? What is she going to be like? No. That sounds bad. And I'm sure they're doing something to look at ARM products. So she's always going to say yes. So because they want to be an innovative company that's perceived as keeping all options on the table. So no, I mean, I think, therefore, what I'm trying to get to is, when it comes to ARM and RISC-V, show me the money. Don't tell me Qualcomm's got a strong ARM APU coming a year from now. No one says a year from now. So what does that mean? It's going to be competing with 12-core Strix with a 50 tops AI engine. And oh, what did Qualcomm say their AI engine has? Oh yeah, 50 tops. So the same as AMD, probably worse CPU performance and almost certainly worse GPU performance. I mean, it's not competing with Phoenix. It's not competing with Hawkpoint. It's competing with Strix, Dave. And I have nothing to say about ARM APUs until they're in a laptop with good reviews, running everything as well as everybody wants them to. That's my answer to ARM until they're there, because people have been hyping up ARM everything for a long time. And as far as we can tell, There's good ARM products, there's good x86 products, and there's no evidence ARM magically beats x86. If you want to beat AMD or Intel, you got to make a good processor, x86 or not. Doesn't matter. If you put an ARM sticker or brand it as ARM, that doesn't make it beat x86. It has not done that. Apple has stagnated on IPC for years. There is no evidence ARM is a silver bullet to killing Intel. Show me the money. I'm so sick of these questions where it's like, the Snapdragon looks impressive. A year from now, let's wait for reviews in a year against Strix because it doesn't seem to have better specs. Okay. But yeah, I mean, your question about will we see more on package products? Yeah, I mean, sure, probably. All right. Memory on package, I meant to say. Sorry if that sounded ranty, but it is becoming a classic rant of mine every time people ask about ARM, I suppose. All right. So now we have some more questions about Super, RDNA 3, and RDNA 4. So let me put down a new time stamp here. All right. Super, RDNA 3, RDNA 4. And again, if you want to ask a question, make sure you get it in now. There's probably only about another 30 minutes of being able to ask them. Jeff R writes in and says, when the 4080 Super comes out at $1,000, will the standard 4080 still be in the lineup? If so, its MSRP has to be reduced quite a lot, don't you think? Any AIBs with leftover 4080 stock would also surely be upset, wouldn't they? Since they would be forced to drop prices to, well, below cost. I don't think 900 would really be getting close to cost, but it says a 4080 currently at 1100 now must drop to 900, right? Yeah, I mean, I think the 4080, I don't actually think NVIDIA has really been making almost any 4080s and shipping them. Uh, I mean, I think they stockpiled a small number a year ago, and that's all they got because it sold badly. And I think they've been setting aside stock. Let's be honest. What is the 4080 also called? The 4090 laptop. So what do you think NVIDIA wants to do? Ship a 4090 die in a $1,000 to $1,100 GPU that is now selling below MSRP and no one really wants? Or do you think NVIDIA would rather ship those yields to a 4090 laptop, same card as the 4080, and then sell that laptop for $3,000? What do you think? Yeah, I don't think NVIDIA has been making a lot of 4080s, and I think right when the 4080 Super comes out, they're going to discontinue the 4080, and then they'll just take those yields that could have been desktop cards, and they'll just use them for 4090 laptops, and then the golden samples will become 4080 Supers, and then the other samples that they've been stockpiling for a year now. They haven't released any downbins of the 4080, guys. They probably have a decent amount of stock sitting there for the 4070 Ti Super. That's what they're going to do. Golden samples now go to the top. Little more disabled samples go to the 4070 Ti Super. And then the 4090 laptops, anything that has to be the same yields as the current 4080 will go into $3,000 laptops. That's definitely what they're going to do. Holden Mobley writes in and says, with the upcoming Super Series, part of me wonders how much sooner it would have released if RDNA 3 lived up to the 100% raster increase hopes. Would it be possible that AMD could invest heavily in RDNA 3 driver development paired with a marketing campaign to combat the Super Series? Or are the RDNA 3 margins the only thing they will try to leverage with a price war? Well, pretty much. Maybe the hopes for strong fine wine this gen is just copium. Well, I think it's becoming copium because it's been almost a year since RDNA 3 came out. You know, I don't remember what it was called, but the 7970, 7870, GCN 1.0 reloaded drivers. I think that's what they were called, Radeon Reloaded. It was either called that or like Catalyst something. I don't remember. But when AMD put out this massive performance boost to the 7970, the GCN 1.0 generation, my memory is that came out like between August and November of 2020. Yeah, of 2012. So I would say in alignment, we need this big 15 to 25% driver performance increase to happen by January, or it's just clearly not going to happen. Like, it's been too long. And it reminds me a little bit of Vega, where, what was the tiled rasterization isn't even enabled conspiracy. And they boosted Vega in drivers over time, but what was it? It was by like 5 to 15%. It wasn't by 30 to 40% like what happened to GCN 1.0. And I think as much as people like to hate on Radeon's driver team, they're a lot better than they were a decade ago. And I think they've probably mostly squeezed some stuff out. You look at recent re-reviews of the 7900 XT, and you can see the RDNA 3 cards out right now are performing about 5% better than they used to through driver updates. I think maybe they'll get to 10 or 15%. I think it's copium to assume they're going to boost drivers. With drivers, they'll boost the 7900XX by 30%. I don't think so. I think whatever went wrong in the architecture is baked in, and it is what it is. Now, having said that, though, let me see. Like, what can they do to combat Super? Well, I've kind of already said it. I think the XTX should be 900 or 850 if AMD wants to get aggressive. And then the 7900 XT should be 700 to 750. I think they do that and it's fine. A 7900 XT at 750 will be $50 cheaper than the 4070 Ti Super. It will have 4 gigabytes more RAM, and it will probably perform, I don't know, 10% worse. So I think even just $700, AMD can go 15% cheaper, more RAM. It's fine compared. So I don't think AMD has to do that much to combat it. And I think we have to remember that go look at AMD's recent Q3 earnings. Radeon sales are up year over year. Like, I don't know what's going on with some people coming under this impression that Radeon's dying. Radeon sales are better than last year. It's in their earnings. It distinctly says revenue flat, almost flat, higher Radeon sales counteracting this. Radeon margins are up. Their margins in graphics cards are up. Their sales in graphics cards are up. This is backed up by bestsellers on Amazon, where it kind of looks like AMD's at least selling it to a third of the market. And you also see it in Tech Epiphany's Mind Factory data. Radeon's selling well. So I just need to jump in here. Like, again, Compressed Earth Blocks writes in and says, hello, Tom. Do you think AMD needs a complete rebrand of their GPU division? No, not when sales are up year over year. I mean, no. This is, then he goes on to compare it to ARC. This is not an ARC situation at all. All we've seen is RDNA 2 almost got their brand to a place where it seemed like people were regarding Radeon almost as well as NVIDIA a few years ago, and they've ruined that. That's what they've ruined. They've ruined having their brand regarded as well as NVIDIA. That's going to take a few more gens to try to do it again. But they haven't killed their brand. Sales are up. Check their earnings. Check Tech Epiphany's Mind Factory data. Check best GPU sellers. You can often see that, well, NVIDIA is selling a mountain of $300 3060s right now. I mean, let me check right now just to make sure, right? Because we should check this. Bestseller, Amazon. Like, I'm sure 3060, yeah, of course 3060 is bestseller because they're free now, practically, compared to what they used to be. But let me look. 1, 2, well, that doesn't count, but 3, 4. Yeah, so 4 out of the, one of them's a support bracket. That's not a graphics card. But I look on Amazon right now, you see 3060, 3060, 3060, 4070, but then 6700 XT, 6600, 580, which is funny, 6700 XT, 4070, then a 7900 XT, then an RX 580, then an RX 6800, then a 4060, then a 7900 XTX. There's no evidence here that AMD is only selling 10%. I think they're selling a third of the market right now. And again, AMD says in their earnings, sales are up, margins are up, they're making more money. So, like, they're just not taking the market, and I think they blew a chance to really go for a higher market share, but I don't think they're really losing market share. And so from that point of view, I don't think they're screwed at all. I just think there's a lot of haters out there right now for some reason. I don't really know why. Bestseller. Let me check Amazon Newegg as well. If I go to Newegg, 4070, 3060, 6700 XT, 3060, 6700 XT, 6600, 7800 XT, 3060 Ti, 3060, 7900 XT. So yeah, in the top 10 bestsellers on Newegg United States right now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of the top 10 sellers on Newegg graphics are AMD. Half. So now the top spots are NVIDIA. So again, and AMD's probably got a third of the market or something. But, this is backed up by Mind Factory data from Europe. I mean, it's just there. It's just there. It's a fact. You shouldn't follow anecdotal evidence or what someone thinks they've heard. You should look at the numbers, and the numbers don't lie. And if they do lie, you should sue AMD because then you'll make money from misleading investors. But I think we just need to remember that, that Radeon screwed their chance to go for more than a fourth or a third of the market. There's no evidence, though, they're like losing more share right now. And let me ask all of you this. I mean, this is just a common sense question. Would Nvidia be launching the fucking Super Series if sales were better? Come on. We know why they're making it. They need to. Grand Demand writes in and says, "Hi, Tom. Do you anticipate the 5090 will have 36 gigabytes of GDDR7, or is the 90 class destined to max out?" I guess I should put a timestamp here for 5090. Or is the 90 class destined to max out 24 gigabytes of VRAM with higher memory amounts reserved for Pro cards? Well, that decision hasn't been made yet. Oh, so you say anticipate. Do I anticipate they'll raise the amount of memory with the 5090? Yes, I guess I do. But it's too early for me to be a 100% sure, because you have to think about this. Right now, it probably feels a little silly that NVIDIA has the same amount of RAM as AMD's $900 XTX with the 4090 compared to it. But it's also selling gangbusters. Like the 4090 is selling well. So maybe half of that's because of AI, but it is. And so you go, well, if you're NVIDIA and AMD's RDNA 4 flagship next year is likely to be an 8800 XT or maybe it'll be called 8700 XT, which, to be clear, if Navi 43, if RDNA 4 beats the 4080 and 4080 Super, especially, then I think they'll call it the 8800 XT because, well, I mean, what? That would make it 40%, 50% faster than the 7800 XT. I think that's what they would do. I think they would call it the 8800 XT and sell it for $600 if it beats the 4080 Super. Now, if it trades blows with a 7900 XT, well, that's where I think they might make it 450 or 500, and they call it the 8700 XT. But that's just to be clear why I say one or the other. If it's 20% stronger than a certain level, they're going to call it something else so they can charge more. Anyways, though, it's kind of a similar situation, though, with the 5090. And if NVIDIA knows, though, that whether it's called the 8800 XT or the 8700 XT, think about it. I'm pretty sure that top RDNA 4 card is going to have 16 gigabytes of RAM. Like, that's what I expect. Could I see AMD going with like a 1.5x gigabit allocation for a special edition of GDDR7? Like, could I see AMD having the standard 8800 XT have 16 gigabytes of RAM, but then they go to like, what would that be then over 256 plus? Would they go to 24 gigabytes with a special edition model if it overperforms expectations? Maybe, but I think the plurality of outcomes here is the 8800 XT / 8700 XT. That's going to have 16 gigabytes of RAM. If it does NVIDIA need to give the 5090 more than 24 gigabytes? Do they? I don't know if they do. So we'll have to see, but just know the decision isn't made yet. And if NVIDIA sees AMD launch an RDNA 4 flagship with 16 gigabytes of RAM, I think NVIDIA is likely to go, we don't need more than 24 gigabytes. It's still enough for 4K, and we want people to spend extra for our AI cards and our professional cards, so screw that. But if AMD has a special edition with 24 gigabytes, if it overperforms expectations, and if NVIDIA looks at sales, like if 4090 sales start to fall apart, like if the AI bubble busts in a few months and then 4090 sales go down, we already saw 4090s going below MSRP during the summer. So it's very clear that if there isn't an AI bubble, the 4090 does not sell as well as they want it to, then I think NVIDIA will go, well, let's be aggressive. Let's go with 32, 36 gigabytes of RAM and really push it. But, if they don't need to, they won't. And I don't think that decision has been made yet. And some of it also has to do with GDDR7 availability. And I've heard that directly from people at NVIDIA that they are disappointed by how fast higher capacity models are coming out. Like, if NVIDIA could launch 12 gigabyte versions of the 4060 Ti because of using a higher memory capacity, GDDR6 or GDDR6X, they would have. they just can't because it's not ready, and they're kind of disappointed about that. And from what I hear, they still aren't optimistic about when the highest capacity GDR7 models will be ready on time. So it comes down to three things. Does AMD have a 16 gigabyte flagship? Are 4090 sales still strong? If both of those things are AMD's 16 gigabytes, 4090 sales are strong. I don't think they'll need more than 24 gigabytes. But then there's also the wild card of, will there be enough memory chip capacity and being manufactured for the higher capacity models anyway? So just keep that in mind. And because of all of those factors, NVIDIA has not made this decision yet. They haven't. You know, when you see people tweeting maybe, they're guessing. They have not made this decision yet. They couldn't have possibly made this decision yet. Okay, and I see we have a tipped question here. Oh, we have a few. Jeez. All right. Well, let me get through the final Patreon question, and then I'll try to get through these tipped questions. So I did want to make sure I hit this one here from a patron. It is from Clean Sweep, and he asked, let me see here, Black Friday shopping. All right. He says, hey, Tom, with Black Friday around the corner, are there any parts that your sources say are in short supply and are worth getting if there's a good deal? Yes, Navi 21. I think this is an important thing for me to say now. And there's a link, and there should be, right, a link in the description to if you're in the United States on Amazon right now, a $390 RX 6800. And actually, let me check out Micro Center since they're sponsoring this video, because from what I hear, there will be a decent amount of Navi 23 cards probably for at least another 6 months. And so, yeah, you're going to keep seeing RX 6600s for like 180 to 200. And I think that's just a fantastic deal, by the way. My girlfriend has a 6600M desktop, a compact desktop, and I'm just blown away by its performance, even in 1440p. If you're doing 1440p 60, that card crushes it while consuming no energy. And I think you're going to see that card continue to be sold for around $200, and it fits its role well there. And then once Navi 23 sales dry up, they'll just drop the price de facto of the 7600 down to like 230 and call it a day. And I think that card will be a worthy replacement of the 6600. I think it'll eventually drift down to $200. So I don't think you need to be rushed to get an RX 6600 because it'll just be replaced by the faster 7600 for a little more money. There's no real changes there. I also hear the 3050 is going to keep being a $200 graphics card for a while. I also think the 3060 is going to keep being a $250 to $300 card for a while. And I actually think at $250, a 12 gigabyte, not 8, a 12 gigabyte 3060 is a good buy. I think, you know, if it's 10 to 20% cheaper than a 6700 XT, I can see the argument for getting a 3060 finally. I think that's going to be fine. Don't worry about those cards. Now, the 6700 XT might dry up in a few months, and Navi 21 should dry up this holiday season, I think. So if you see a really good deal on a Navi 21, meaning RX 6800, RX 6800 XT, 6900, 6950 XT, get it. I'm not telling you to get a 6800 XT at 500, get the 7800 XT. Lower power, better ray tracing, newer features. No. But if you see a bargain on it, that's when you spring into action here. And in fact, there is a link in the description to a 6800. Yeah, it's already sold out. So there's more evidence. It's sold out on Micro Center, at least at the location I'm looking at in Chicago, which is one of the ones. Let me check Georgia. I'm kind of close to, probably a little closer to Georgia, actually. Yeah. So you can see it on Micro Center. 6800 XTs and 6800s are pretty much gone. And so that link in the description to Amazon, where there is a 6800 16 gigabyte for $390, get that. That is the budget card. I'm sorry. Like that is, and I think that's one that won't be here after this holiday season's clean sweep. That is my advice. You know, if you think about it, like if I think the 6600 is a stellar bargain at $200, how much stronger is the 6800? Because it's hard to beat the 6600 in price performance. Okay, but think about that though. So the 6800 is 77% stronger, according to Tech Power Up. 1.77 times 200, 350. So the price to the performance difference between a 6800 at $390 to a 6600 at $200 is almost even. You're maybe paying 10% more for the 6800, but it has double the RAM. 16 gigabytes. It's never running out. And I mean, people talk about, oh, we wish there was a new RX 480 or something. Like, let me look at inflation calculator. All right. And then let me go to RX 480 because I think that launched for like $230 with 8 GB, didn't it? Come on, tell me what it cost. All right, yeah, $230. So 230. Then let's go to 2016. That's when the 480 launched. If we adjust for inflation, yeah, that's about $300. So, and keep in mind, a lot of the times the 480 was often selling for, I mean, $300 at first. It dropped down pretty quickly, but the mining boom actually kind of kept it up there. So, you're paying aligned to inflation. You're paying maybe 20% more than what you would have paid in 2016 for a 4080, but you're getting something that's going to do 4K 60 easy forever with 16 gigabytes of RAM. So I would just throw that out there. And I guess since I'm just doing Black Friday shopping and advice, I guess I do want to check one of my other unsung heroes of this lineup. That's like the only person who's talked about this card, I swear to God, is like me in Tech Yes City. The RX 6700. Yeah, so the RX 6700, a 10 gigabyte card for $270. I think that's it. If you're looking to save money, I think your options are 6600 below 200, RTX 3060 12 gigabyte for below 300, RX 6700 for 270, which I can see it is an XFX model right now, a nice model on Newegg, and 6800 for 390. And I do believe the 6800 will be gone. Like, you're not getting this deal again. So get it if you want a budget. If you're on a budget, I mean. All right. All right. I wanted to just hammer that one extra hard. Let me now get to these tipped questions. PS5 Pro. There's always the obligatory PS5 Pro question every time I do. And as you can probably tell, I am making progress on setting up the studio. It's not even half done. But I tell you what, I'm starting late tonight because I swear to God, that thing, I thought it'd take me 45 minutes to like mount something to a wall and look at stuff, but no, it took like 2 hours, and it's ready to go. You're going to see more lights and different shelves, and I'm going to have, my plan is to have color coded shelves to different companies that switch colors on the fly while I talk about them. It's possibly like a fireplace here too, burning below the logo. I actually am very excited about what I'm doing with the studio, but you're going to keep seeing stuff change behind me. Anyways, Superman writes in, hello, good sir. Any new info on the PS5 Pro? I'm a little obsessed. Hope your night is going well. It is going pretty well, I would say. I don't have any new info. I'm going to be honest, guys. I don't follow the PS5 Pro closely. I think in 2021, I leaked that it was coming out, and I'm kind of done talking about it because I think you know everything you need to know. What's it going to be? It's going to be 500 to 650, I'm sure. Probably 600. And they're going to target something at least twice as strong as the PS5. What does that mean? Well, I say the PS5 is about 6700 performance, maybe 3060 Ti. It depends, right? If you don't program to the PS5 strengths, it's about a 3060. If you program to the PS5 strengths, it's like a 3070 16 gigabyte. And you can kind of see it back and forth. Like Alan Wake with mesh shaders, it's not meant for the PS5. Performs like a 3060 if you line it up. But then you look at other games and it's clearly performing like a 3070. So let's just call it a 6700 here. Where is that? Is that even on Tech Power Up quickly? Not really. Well, let's just use 3060 Ti then. So if they double that performance, you're looking at, yeah, I mean, look, guys, I don't know what to tell you. I think the PS5 Pro is going to perform probably at least like a 7900 XT, all the way up to an XTX, which, does that sound familiar? Yeah, I mean, the PS5 Pro probably uses some variant of an architecture that pulls from RDNA 4 and RDNA 3.5. And if it, probably with some other custom stuff sprinkled in. And if it does, sounds a lot like the 8800 XT, doesn't it? Huh, what does that remind you of? Oh, yeah, the PS4 Pro was a lot like the RX 480, but with FP16 and some enhancements. That's what we're going to see. So I think it's going to be a similar situation. The only difference is I suspect they will charge $600 this time. We'll see. We'll see. Because, you know, it's, we'll see. Maybe they'll do 500. That would be cool. But if I were Sony, especially because I'm not so sure if Xbox will have a Series X Elite next to it. If you know you don't have an Elite to compete with for a year, if you know that the PlayStation 5 is still selling very well, and if you know that, like, hey, if you charge $600, you can afford to give it 1.5 terabytes of storage, that's probably what I would do if I was Sony, because it's going to be selling next to graphics cards that cost the same or a little less with the same performance. And so I think that's what you should expect out of it to launch next year. Again, though, just keep in mind, I really haven't been asking people about it. So if I put out a leak a week from now that says some different stuff, it's because I haven't asked. But I think this is pretty common sense stuff, lining up with both what I've said before, what others are saying right now online, and just common sense. Like, that is what I would target if I was Sony. I would target something hopefully a little over double the performance for more money. And if right now the PlayStation 5 is a, I don't know, call it 1440p 60 console, but some games run at 1800p dynamic resolution. I think if you doubled that performance, you're looking at something that just hits 4K 120, and I think that's what they would want to target. All right, let me scroll down now. All righty. Will AMD keep doing the soft price drop strategy? So I assume you are, I guess, let me add that there. AMD pricing strategy. Change the lights behind me. Will AMD keep doing the soft price drops strategy? So by that I assume you mean, and Nvidia is doing it too, by the way. By that I guess Intel almost is kind of too. By that I assume you mean they launch a product at some price and then they never admit they dropped the price. Like, you can say that AMD has never officially dropped the price of the RX 7900 XT, but here's something funny. If you go to AMD.com right now, let me double check it before I say something. Shop graphics. I mean, they're selling the 7900 XT, AMD is, from their own store for $850. And if I go to Newegg and type in RX 7900 XT, what do we have here? Let's see the price. Oh, look at that. 800, 780. Oh, no, actually, that is 740. There's a XFX one. That's a good deal, by the way, if someone wants that. 800. Yeah, it's very obvious. And I've had partners, direct retailers directly tell, and AIBs directly tell me this, that they can make a profit selling the 7900 XT for 750. That means AMD is selling, it's, this is an $800 to $750 card. Like, so, like, is AMD going to continue this strategy of never admitting they dropped the price, which also NVIDIA has done with the 4070 and the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte? Probably. I would just hope with RDNA 4 they're less stupid. Like, they price the 8800 XT at like 550 if it's really good. Otherwise 500 or less. And they price the 8700 XT at like 450 and they just go for it, and they don't have to do these soft price drops as often. But yeah, I mean, it seems like that's what everyone's doing, not just AMD, and I don't really see them changing that. All right. Spencer Walker writes in and says, I need a GPU. Do you think the RTX 4080 will drop to $1,000 for Black Friday? I'm assuming the Super won't be available to buy until late February. It might be available in late January, actually. But let me put down this buy 4080 now is what we will put the timestamp as. Well, wait for Black Friday. Isn't it already close to 1,000 in a couple places? If I go to Newegg, the 4080 is, I don't know, man. That's just so much money to spend for a card that is going to be replaced in a month, 2 months, I guess. There you go here. See if there's a deal on Amazon. Sometimes there are. All right, there's one for 1,100. There's one for 1,100. I don't know. Look, if you need a 4080, I mean, I guess you can get it for right now for $1,100. I wouldn't expect any. I don't know, man. I just don't know what graphics card you have, Spencer. Like, do you have a card that you're happy with? Do you have a card that's playing the games you need to play well? If you do, why do you need to buy now? If the 4080 Super comes out in 2 months, I would wait. I'm sorry. You could wait for something up to 10% faster for 20% less. Why? And you know what I've noticed too on eBay? Supers have pretty good resale value. In fact, let me see if I'm full of shit by double checking that right now. Like if I look for an RTX 2080, 300, let me do buy it now. We got 300, 330, that's 2080 Ti that doesn't work. Here you got a blower one, probably from some mining rig for 210, 220. Yeah, let me see. I don't know why there's such a big pricing difference here. Now, if I put in super, I did see one that seemed to be a cheaper price. That one's for parts only, Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like the super cards also hold their value 20% better. So, are you going to consider switching to something else eventually? Because, you know, you may 2 years from now, when you're upgrading to a 5080, sell your 4080 for, if I had to guess, I don't know, $500, $600. But a 4080 Super may sell for 700 on eBay. So not only are you saving money if you wait, but you're also going to make more money back when you sell it. So look, guys, I can't recommend the 4080. That card fucking sucks. Okay, it sucks. There's 24 gigabyte cards for hundreds of dollars left. I cannot get on board. So my advice to anyone considering a 4080, like it has been consistently for a year, is forget that card exists because it's a bad product. And don't be the only person that bought a 4080 in November and then have something. Think about it. The 4080 Super is going to be like 8% faster for 20% less. We're looking at like a 30% price to performance increase there. Just can't get behind it. If you have to get a card right now, and assuming your card is something like a, I don't know, let's say you have a 2060. I would say if you insist on buying something from Team Green, like you'll just get cancer if you consider AMD for some reason. You can see, oops, I meant to type 4070. You can find 4070s that I don't think are the worst price right now. Right now on Newegg, there is a Zotac 4070 for $520 after the coupon. I mean, guys, you're talking about something that's less than half the price of a 4080 with 2/3 the RAM and 2/3 is it 2/3 the performance? I don't know. Let me double check that actually. Where is that? Because I know the 4070 isn't crazy performance at all. It's like a kind of like a 3080, but at the same time, how much better does that make? Yeah, so I don't know. If you get a 4080, you're paying, it has a third more memory and 50 to 60% more performance than a 4070 for double the price. I just can't get on board. The 4070 is probably enough performance for most people anyways. So just get that if you need to buy something now. That card is kind of already aligned with super pricing. It's $520 on Newegg. They'll have the 4070 Super. Yeah, the 4070 Super will be like 15% faster, but it'll probably cost 20% more or something. So just get a 4070 now and don't get duped. That is my advice to you. Okay, I think I sufficiently answered that. Gunter O'Dim writes in, thank you for the tip. What GPU comparable performance level will the different Strix APUs have based on your present info from my sources? I do think it's funny when people say that a little bit because it suggests that I am just not telling you guys new information. If I haven't updated things, usually I have nothing new to say because if I did, I would make money doing a video telling you. But you asked the question. Thank you for the tip. I mean, I've already leaked that it should be around 3050 performance. That's what I expect. I go look it up. There was a broken silicon where I directly leaked 880M performance. Well, it might be called 890M actually. Now that I think about it, because it'll be in Strix after Hawkpoint. But whatever it will be, Strix's integrated graphics directly compared to the 3050. I don't really see that changing. And in fact, if I'll do you a solid though and tell you a bit more since you gave me a tipped question asking it. So, Strix will have 16 compute units over 12, RDNA 3.5. So that's 33% more compute units. And then let's just be optimistic and say it's 20% better per compute unit. I don't really think it will be 20% better, but I could see it could be 20% better. It's 3.5. It'll probably clock a lot faster. So that bit's at 60% better. Well, right. So Phoenix is about 1650 performance, 60% better than that. Gets us to oh, look at that. Like a 1660 super desktop, which is the performance of a 3050 in laptop. So yeah, you're looking at desktop 1660 to desktop 3050 performance. Although I will be honest, the graphs I've seen of Strix integrated performance distinctly say 3050 laptop at 45 watts. Not 35, not 25, but like middle of the road laptop 3050 performance. Which, is pretty much 1660 performance. So that's a lot stronger. I mean, I expect Strix to have minimum 30% better integrated graphics, possibly 60% better integrated graphics performance. And that's exciting. I think that's enough. I mean, I have a 3050. Actually, I have a 3050 back there on the shelf next to the spatulas. That thing, honestly, it is it was good enough for 1440p 60. I mean, it was. And for that matter, in a laptop at 45 watts, I think it'll easily do 1080p 60 at high settings, 1440p medium 60 on a laptop. I think that's great. I think that's enough. It'd be great if it was 3060 performance, but I don't think it will be. And that's going to be Strix Halo. What'll be really interesting is to see if Hawkpoint can manage to get to like 1650 Ti desktop performance. So I guess there wasn't a desktop of that, but that's something I'll be watching as well. All right, let me get to the next question. Pretty sure there were more. Yeah, there were. There it is. Any plans for a new CLS appearance, maybe for PS Portal? I mean, me and Colin Moriarty still talk occasionally, so I think I just haven't been on recently because, well, until new hardware comes out, I don't know how much there is to talk about it. But I would say if you want to see me on CLS, message Colin's Last Stand, message Colin Moriarty, and ask for a specific thing to talk about, though, because I think I'll make another appearance. I just don't know when, but I can promise you I will, at least for the PS5 Pro and stuff, and maybe even for the Nintendo Switch 2 once firm details about that come out. Yeah, I think so. Jinx writes in and says, I just got here, so sorry if you cover this, but any news about the 5700X 3D? I don't even know if I've asked anyone about it. Let me check. Maybe I forgot. No, I don't think I've even asked people about it. I don't have any news about it, really. I would just say, if I have new stuff to say about it, expect it in the next Broken Silicon. I'll probably be asking my sources about it as part of this coverage of that story. And otherwise, no, I think, the 5700X 3D. What does the 5800X 3D sell for, or 5600X 3D sell for right now? At Micro Center. It's a problem when I do these live streams is I forget to breathe. You can probably tell, I'm just realizing I haven't breathed for 10 minutes. Yeah, so right now the 5600X 3D is $230. And if I go to Newegg and I want a 5800X 3D, I've heard the margins from people at Micro Center on the 5600X 3D are crazy good too. They're very happy selling it for $230. They're making bank selling each one of those things. And yeah, the 5800X 3D is $320. So I have no reason to doubt that a 5700X 3D will be $299 or even $250. Or even $250, and a 5500X 3D could be $200 or even $180, $150 flat. I think AMD can easily afford it, and I think this is why you see AMD dominating DDR4 platform sales right now, because who is buying a Alder Lake i3 when you can get a 5600X 3D or something for these prices? So, yep, that's all I really have to say about it. I have no reason to doubt those are coming out, though. Mexi Man and Cheese writes in and says, I heard rumors that NVIDIA might delay the 50 series, so I thought I would ask my buddy whose uncle works at NVIDIA. You. That's funny. I mean, You're just hearing things I've said, which is that Blackwell will be ready by the end of next year, and I've already gotten confirmation it will be shown off at CES and laptops, June 2025. That tells you it will definitely launch by Q1 2025. Like it will. That is when Lovelace laptop, I mean not Lovelace, Blackwell laptops are launching, and that means most likely it's going to launch Q4. But again, it's up to NVIDIA when they want to launch it. You know, I almost wonder if AMD shouldn't have even launched RDNA 3 in 2022. They should have waited till Q1. But, you know, it is what it is. So I think that final decision hasn't been made yet. I think they will be ready to launch in Q4, and then NVIDIA is just going to decide if they want to sell it during the holiday season. 5090 delay. Okay. Sorry, I have to remember to breathe. I'm getting way too excited talking here. Well, I'm trying to remember to breathe. Please make it easier to breathe by hitting that like button for me. We have almost 700 people watching right now live. Please hit the like button and also click those links in the description for Micro Center. Again, plugging the sponsor of this live stream. Micro Center has been a fantastic sponsor to work with, by the way. The people there are easy to work with too. So show support for them by clicking those links in the description and checking them out if you want to build a PC in the US this year, you know. All right. Spencer Walker writes, and again, thank you for the tip. Only got a Steam Deck. Just bought the OLED. Great point on the resale value. I'll wait for a 4080 Super, and TV is getting 4K, getting Alan Wake 2 for path tracing. I haven't played the original Alan Wake. I will wait. Yeah, I thought the original Alan Wake was a really good game. So, I mean, granted, that's like, what, a decade ago when it came out? So, I don't know how well it's aged, but I've heard from people who have played it that it aged well. So, make sure you don't miss the first one. I thought that game was very good. And yeah, I mean, you'll wait for the 4080 Super. I mean, I would. Okay. Right. I've gotten through the Patreon questions. I'll probably do this for like another 10 minutes or so. So if you have any final questions, throw them in there now. Otherwise, if you are a patron in the Moore's Law is Dead Discord, which I have to plug it, guys, just $2 a month on the Moore's Law is Dead Discord gets you access to hundreds of pieces of content and hundreds upon hundreds of hours of content, ad-free. A new Die Shrink comes out tomorrow where I take a bet from a fan on RDNA 4 performance. I talk about our Radeon's software, and me and Dan also discuss how long 4K graphics cards will last. Like, join the Patreon. $2 a month gets you tons of ad-free bonus content. Early Broken Silicon episodes are at higher tiers. You can ask questions for free. Like my fans will be asking questions for free right now. I see them typing in the Moore's Law is Dead Discord in the after video chat section. We're hoping to get to a much higher level in the Discord because I'm trying to hire more people, and I want to put out bonus content and ad-free versions of everything I make to the patrons. You know, just need to get to those higher tiers. So, all right, new question. Light Ward Penn writes in and says, news. I have a 14700K with less consumption to use Intel APO than if it surpasses the XRD. All about Intel APO game optimization before hurting AMD because Intel is pure worse than NVIDIA. So yeah, I don't know. I think you're talking about in Intel's APO performance for like 14th gen, was it a Metro Exodus and something? And I think Rainbow Six Siege. Look, if it was easy for Intel to program APO into every game, it would be in every game. And I think what we're seeing is Intel, if they just program to the metal, can get a 10 to 30% performance boost, but there's no way they have the resources to program like it's a console for everything. And I think that's why you see them only doing it on 14th gen, also to try to get you to get it 14th gen. So look, I would not buy 14th gen with the assumption that it will age 20% better than where it is now because of APO. I would just leave it at that. If it was that easy to do it, they would have done it for everything. Christmas Crustacean writes in and says, AM4 won't die, N6 DDR4 IO die with a 680M win. Yeah, I don't know that they're going to do new launches that are APUs to AM4 though. Doesn't Rembrandt use DDR5 though? So let me look this up. C900 HS. Let me see here. I'm only seeing Rembrandt, Zen 3 Plus APUs listing DDR5 support. So never. They're not coming to AM4 because they don't have DDR5 support. No, I don't think they're going to. I think moving forward, it's all going to be about what they can launch to AM5, with the exception of X3Ds and 3 products to AM4 to keep the sales rolling in. But and also that mitigates DDR4 bandwidth issues. So no, I don't think so. I think you'll see a bunch of new APUs, maybe even Rembrandt on AM5. I do not think you're going to see it on AM4. So Rune BP writes in and asks, running an RX 6900 XT, and I'm thinking about upgrading to a 7900 XTX, but I want to know if it'd be worth waiting for an RX 8800 XT. Well, let me look here. How much can you sell a 6900 XT for? Let's see. 300. Oh, geez. That's 480, 450. Let's say 450. You can sell a 6900 XT. It seems easily on eBay for 450. And so with eBay taking a cut with the shipping costs, you're really going to make like $400 selling a 6900 XT. So then the question becomes, do you think it's worth paying $500 to get 50% more performance than your 6900 XT right now? Up to you. I would suggest, if you're happy with your performance, that you could wait, but I do think RDNA 4 might not come out until like late next year. And there's no guarantee still. So I would just say, if you want more performance, a 7900 XTX, if you can get it for 900 or less, is a good deal. But it might drop in price to compete with Super next year. And if you're happy with 6900 XT performance, I don't think you need to buy it now. I don't. And the 8800 XT should have the same performance with less power consumption for less money a year from now. And so if you're happy, just wait. You can always wait. I think you'll still be able to sell the 6900 XT for like 300 next year, and then you'll spend 200 to get an 8800 XT. If you're happy with your performance, wait. If you want more, don't. See, I think the 7900 XTX is good for, I don't know, people with a 2080 Ti, people with a 6700 XT, people who have a 5700 XT they got for 450, and they're like, yeah, I'll spend extra to get something with triple the RAM and over double the performance, or triple the performance, really. I think that's who the 7900 XTX is for. I think someone with a 6900 XT, I mean, it's stronger, but I don't know that you need it. I think the 8800 XT is going to be the one to get, because I think you'll be able to sell. And, pay attention to this channel. I think I'll tell you when the 8800 XT is launching 6 months from now. I'll be like, hey, it's going to launch soon. And then once I tell you that, like I knew when Polaris was launching, actually before I even made the channel, like I followed the rumors like Adored TV, and I was like, Polaris is going to match my 390X probably, and use less energy, have 8 gigabytes of RAM. And I sold my 390X for $300 and bought a 480 for $250 the next week. No joke, I did that. I pocketed $50 and got the same performance with better frame pacing and less power consumption a week later. So just pay attention. I'll tell you, hey, the 8800 XT is launching in a couple months. And that's when, if you want to, you can sell it for $350 or something, and then buy a $500 card that's 20% better and uses less energy, or maybe even similar price, so that's stronger. So that's when you do that. I don't think you need to buy something now. What am I saying? It would be like 50% stronger than your 6900 XT. I don't see you as needing to do it, but if you want that performance now with more RAM, then do it, but only if you want to. All right, that got a little rambly. Sorry about that. Any news about an AMD motherboard 700 chipset? No, I mean, X650E. Right, so it'll be 750E rumor, Zen 5, AM5. I haven't asked anyone, to be fair, but I think AMD may just use the same chipset. I've heard there were some plans thrown around for a better chipset that added maybe 4 more PCIe lanes and a couple other stuff. But if you think about it, the chipset used for Zen 4 has gone through some revisions. Like, it used to need more active cooling, be more expensive. They've got cheaper versions of it now that use less energy. I think that's good enough. Look, X670E can support a Gen 5 SSD, multiple Gen 4, multiple SATA, USB, the latest stuff. I think AMD, doesn't see a point, most likely. We'll know for sure in like a month or so, but I don't think AMD sees a point in launching an X750 Extreme right now if it's only going to be a little better, and instead they could just focus on on shipping existing AM5 motherboards via boat, so the shipping is cheap, so that there's tons of X650 Extreme motherboards, or what was it, X670 Extreme? Sorry, I was saying the wrong number. AMD will have tons of X670 Extreme motherboards on the market right when Zen 5 launches for a cheaper price. I think they think that's a better move. So I wouldn't wait for any new chipsets. I think what we have now is pretty much what you're going to get. They're just going to want them to be cheap. And I think that's a big deal because they'll have cheap X670E motherboards on the market before all Arrow Lake launches. And then Intel is going to have to be the one telling people, hey, you've got to buy our new LGA 1851 motherboard, even though AMD's got these $200 options for months now with Zen 5. All right, let me check if there's any more Discord questions. Okay, Melodic Warrior writes in from the Moore's Law said Discord for free, like you can if you join the Patreon for just $2 a month. And he says, what is going on with MSI? They have not released any new AMD products in almost 6 months. And I also see that all of their marketing is run Intel and NVIDIA. I checked and I don't see any new AMD products being made by them. Seems strange. Oh, they've just taken deals with NVIDIA. And you've got to think about it. EVGA is not a NVIDIA flagship seller anymore. So if EVGA is bowing out, then you've got to bet that MSI was offered some deal from NVIDIA, like, hey, sell less AMD products and we'll give you a better cut. I think that's MSI trying to position themselves as the new EVGA, right? That's them. They are, and I believe PNY is as well. So, that's what I think you're seeing there. And I think they regret it a little bit here. Well, I don't know if they regret it. They're probably still making plenty of money selling Lovelace. But this would have probably been the better move to make with Ampere, not to make when the 7900 XTX is out selling a 4080. But, whatever. All right. So, any final questions? I finally caught up, and I am dying of a low oxygen count in my bloodstream because I keep forgetting to breathe. Let me see. Any more interesting questions in the live chat? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Mostly just see you guys talking to each other there. Solid Snake says, I'd also argue the 4060 Ti 8GB and 16GB are bad GPUs. Yeah, I don't think the 4060 Ti 8GB is good. I think the 4060 below $300 is almost okay, but come on, what are you going to get? A $280 3060 12GB or a $280 4060 8GB? I think you go with the 3060 probably just because that extra RAM there makes up for the fact that it's 15% weaker. And the 6700 is cheaper at 10 gigabytes as well. Yeah, I mean, I think the 4060 could be okay if it got a 10% price cut. I think the 4060 Ti 8GB god awful. I will say the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte could be an interesting one. It's just, I don't think it's an inherently bad product. It's just a bad price. And that's always true. If the 4060 was $50, it'd be the best card ever made. But it's not. But yeah, the 4060 16 gigabyte is drifting towards $430. It's getting below the price of a 7700 XT. And if I look up the performance difference there, tech power up. If I look at that sucker is, just below a 3070 in performance. So the 7700 XT is 15% faster than a 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte. So let me put down a timestamp for this too, because I actually think this is an interesting discussion in and of itself. Ti, good. So I do want to caveat though, if the 4060 Ti, we saw in 7700 XT reviews that everyone said it should be cheaper because of the 7800 XT, but what was the second best price performance card after the 7800 XT? The 7700 XT. So if the 4060 Ti, and it is right now $430, that's, we're not 10% cheaper than the 7700 XT, but if it becomes 410, 420. It has more RAM than the 7700 XT. It's only 15% weaker, but it has DLSS. I actually think if the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte hit $400, I would recommend it over the 7700 XT. And I'd actually go as far as to say that it would be an equal option to the 7800 XT at 500. So, a reader mail, a tipped question here just said they also thought the 4060 and 4060 Ti were bad cards. I think the 4060, if it was ever 250, would be a good card. I think the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte at 400 would be a great card. It's just not. At $500, it's a joke compared to the 7800 XT, but it is getting there. And if it gets to $400, I would probably recommend the 4060 Ti 16 gig over the 7700 XT. So just keep in mind that, they're not great right now, I still don't think they're remotely as bad as the 4080. And in fact, with this 4060 Ti, let's put it this way. How much stronger is the 4080? Yeah, so the 4080 is about double the performance of a 4060 Ti for over double the price with the same amount of RAM. Yeah, it's not very good. That would be like if there was a $450 card that is the same performance as a 79. Yeah, that's like has 24 gigs of RAM and is half the performance of a 7900 XTX. That'd be a great card. 24 gigs for $450. I mean, as long as you're not going for high refresh rate, that's not a horrible card. But until it gets there, yeah, it's not good. But nothing compares to how bad the 4080 is, in my opinion. All right, we got some new tipped questions, so I do want to get to them. Askar Akhmedov writes in and says, "Hello, Tom. Can you please say what's going on with the ARM alternatives in data center and hyperscalers? Is this going to work?" Well, I mean, there's always going to be ARM options in data center. So will that work? I guess the answer is yes. But I think right now, most people buying ARM servers are getting them because they're cheaper. Right? That's what I hear with Amazon's Graviton. No one's buying them because they're better than EPYC. So I think you're going to keep seeing ARM data center products out there to make sure AMD doesn't go mad with power. Like if Intel's server market share keeps falling apart, AMD's still going to have to compete with budget ARM products. And I hear Apple's going to make ARM servers eventually. So, that's what's going on. Are they going to work? Yes. But they're considered as budget alternatives usually. And so far, I don't see people saying that NVIDIA Grace is magic. They just say it's good for specific use cases bundled with Hopper. They're not saying this is better than EPYC or something. Let me keep scrolling down here. Mr. W writes in and says, "Why doesn't AMD launch chipsetless AM5 boards, even if I/O is simply using the CPU or I/O?" Well, you have those Dragon Range ones, but I'm sure there's some chipset in there. Chipsetless AM5 boards. I mean, that's just not. I like. Why don't they make an AM1 option that's like $80 with less I/O? I guess they just don't really see a market for that because they think people will just buy AM4 instead. That'd be my answer. Stephen Clark writes in and says, "Thanks for all the great leaks and conversations on Patreon. You and Dan rock." Oh, thank you. Thank you for the support, Stephen. Okay. Let me see here. The Hollow Knight writes in with an interesting question from the Moore's Law Z Patreon for free. And he says, "What would the die size of a top RDNA 4 need to be priced at $500 with good margins?" Well, I mean, isn't the 7800 XT got a die size combined of 346 millimeters square? So think of it this way. Right now, AMD is making good margins as proven in their earnings. They have good margins. Let me put that here. RDNA 4 margin. AMD has good margins with a 346 millimeter squared 7800 XT. Now, granted, 200 millimeters of that is just 5 nanometers. So, but then you have packaging costs. So if I just cut that in half, 146, assuming double the cost of the silicon, that gets us to 276, right? Like 140, no, 173 divided by 2. Yeah, that's 73. So that would make it 273 millimeters squared in cost. Also, there'd be some efficiency gain there. So that'd be like, yeah, and then there's the packaging cost. Yeah, it's funny. Carino Sugata, contributor in the Discord, says probably 300 millimeters square. I'd agree. Think of it this way. Right now, they're selling a 346 millimeter squared 7800 XT for 500. It has good margins. All right. So make it all 4 nanometer, but also keep in mind that there'd be some cost savings with reduced packaging. There would be some cost savings in the fact that it, has a more compact die size. There's some efficiency loss using 6 nanometer and then having to separate it into different dies. There is. And I think the cost would come to about the same at 300 millimeter squared. You'd still have probably 16 gigs of RAM. So I think they can totally afford to make this thing. Yeah, I mean 300 millimeters squared around there with good margins, probably even a little bit above that. Yep. So I think so. I think 300 millimeters squared, and that's why I think they're probably going to do that with these 8800 XT. All right. Final call. We'll give it 30 more seconds. Final call on questions, everybody. AMD is going to need to add compute back to their architecture to get the RT performance. Aaron Winberg just says, well, thank you and have a nice Thanksgiving. Yep, and there should be a new video and there should be a new Broken Silicon next week. Someone asked, are we going to see Dan for Thanksgiving? Right before it in Broken Silicon. But if you were going to see another live stream with Dan, that'll probably be a New Year's Eve or Christmas era one. We'll see when we have time to do it. Yeah, if I had to guess, the December/November one technically will probably be me by myself. I guess there's a narrow chance you'll see us in a loose ends late December together, but we'll see. I'm probably be home by then anyways. All right, everybody. Let me see. Could Intel copy ARM's business model? Could Intel copy ARM's business model, seeing Intel's designs are always late? Well, you need to elaborate, Colt Marshmallow, about what you mean by can Intel copy ARM's business model. If you mean just letting other people design it on their nodes, I don't think so. I think people would just use AMD for that because they would just use TSMC's foundries, trust AMD better not to steal their stuff because AMD has a long history of doing all these semi-custom designs. I mean, Intel can try to, but I think anyone who would copy ARM's business model would more likely be AMD. MLW636 says it probably means splitting off x86. I don't think so. No. All right, so that's going to do it for this episode. Remember, this episode is sponsored by Micro Center. Please go in the description right now and click on those links for Micro Center. If you need to do a new build in the US this year, go to Micro Center. They've got the best prices, and you can get extra deals there right now. They have a bunch of Black Friday deals linked below. A new Charlotte store, they'll give you a free flash drive, $100 3D printer if you're a new customer at Micro Center, and then also subscribe. Half of the viewers, it says on YouTube, half of the viewers are not subscribed. Please double check that you're subscribed and subscribe right now under the video. And also join the Patreon. $2 a month will get you a 1-hour die shrink video next week, tomorrow. If you're watching this, there's a new die shrink out probably, and you get it, no ads, for free. A bunch of cool subjects covered there. There's a new 1.5-hour episode on the causes and death of the PC gaming renaissance. It's a great blast from the past, deep dive into an old era. No ads, free to patrons. Otherwise, again, thanks for watching. Hit the like button, tell your friends about us, and have a nice weekend, everybody. I got a birthday to celebrate.